Well, I figured today we would talk about the new UK-Germany Defence Pact. Um, it's what's being called the Trinity House Agreement, and most importantly of all, the big takeaway from this is that one of Germany's biggest armament manufacturers, Rheinmetall, is now opening a brand new gun barrel factory in the UK by about 2027, I believe it is. But that is a very, very big, significant investment by Rheinmetall into building that new factory, and does definitely signal a increase and strengthening between UK-German alliances under this new Trinity House Agreement. So this whole Trinity House Agreement was modeled after the Lancaster House Agreement. It's a very somewhat similar treaties that we've had between France in the past, but it does mark a brand new, very significant defense collaboration, not only with Germany, that being, Europe's, second largest defense spender. It's very significant. And this is because we have really recognized that Europe, and again, when I do say Europe in this context, I do mean us as well. Like the idea that in this context, the UK should be viewed as a third country is a moot point when it comes to the defense of Europe. But this does very much signal a significant shift in UK and EU relations. We've seen since Labour has won, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he's gone and he's met with these leaders, and he's been met with a lot warmer reception than people kept on telling me when I was initially talking about these things, that, Starmer's going to go and talk with these people. Lammy's going to go talk with these people. And, we're going to see stuff done. Well, guess what? Trinity House Agreement. Am I going to be told that's nothing now? I await to be told that this Trinity House Agreement in the comments below is an absolute nothing burger by the people who were telling me apparently Starmer will do and achieve nothing. So this has very, very much so, and been prioritized by Starmer to improve these relations, and he really gone after prioritizing defense and security cooperation, because I think now more than ever it is really recognized the fact that we need to cooperate more with all of us in these, European allies on these. And Starmer does see this German-UK pact now as a foundation to move forward to more European-wide cooperation when it comes to sort of military, energy. We talked about that very recently, where you've even got European energy companies saying to the European Union, yeah, you need to really look at this, because the situation here with energy trading, just not fit for purpose, needs to be fundamentally looked at and changed. But also climate change stuff as well. So that does align very much with a lot of the EU on some of those grounds. So this is definitely areas where we can work together. And a big reason why security and military and defense cooperation is coming up is because of concerns over US reliability. This is becoming now a constant key concern, and you are seeing a lot of this being repeated everywhere across Europe. Can we trust US reliability? Because we've got, in less than 2 weeks now, if Donald Trump wins, what does that mean for Trump's support for NATO, for Ukraine? And even if he doesn't win, this still raises reliability issues for maybe a future American, or should we say future Republican president, because a lot of the potential future Republicans are very, very much mirroring what Trump has said about that. So this does really raise a lot of issues for US reliability, and brings up what the EU has been moving towards, what has been called strategic autonomy, so that we can act without the need for the US. We've seen this very recently with the Storm Shadow stuff um, in Ukraine. We've said, yeah, they want to use Storm Shadows, go ahead. But they can't because the US still says no. Even though, these missiles are, the Storm Shadow in particular is a joint UK-French production. So there needs to be a lot more strategic autonomy for Europe so that it can act by itself. That includes rebuilding a lot of the industrial capacity, a lot of the industrial base, so that it then can reduce its dependence on those US security guarantees, so that if something like this should come up again in the future, those concerns can be very much alleviated. So it all comes down to more European strategic autonomy. And it is increasingly becoming focused on self reliance in security matters. So, and this really does represent now pushing past a lot of those post Brexit resentments to now consider more deeper UK EU integration when it comes to mutual defense. This is something that a lot of countries are recognizing, and we are seeing talks about that very, very much happening. However, there are going to be challenges on this. So, while the Trinity House Agreement is a very, very good step forward for UK and German relations and does potentially set how maybe some of these security agreements with the EU can go in the future, there is still the question of, can things like the Trinity House Agreement maybe proceed without altering of the Brexit Trade and Cooperation Agreement, without the TCA, into now wider integration, but that might require more renegotiation when it comes to that. Remember, there was an opportunity to discuss this during the withdrawal period. I do not see why these conversations cannot happen again. If the EU were perfectly fine to talk about cooperation, security, and defense during the Brexit withdrawal period, why then are they suddenly going to be disinterested in talking about this type of stuff now? But I do obviously recognize that there are limits that the Labour government does not want to pursue. So it does want these types of, cooperation, but it doesn't want to align too closely, of course, for the UK's being being outside the single market. Now, eventually, I think that will come to a head. At some point, Starmer will have to go, well, we could have this really good security operation and whatnot, but to do it, we'd have to maybe align maybe more with the single market stuff. Now, we've already got that type of legislation actually potentially coming into Parliament very soon with the meteorological and metallurgical bill. I know, fascinating name for a bill. That bill, it specifically does say about the UK maintaining its alignment on standards with the rest of the European Union. So, you know, how closely are we? If we're already pretty much aligned with them on stances of things like regulation and whatnot, why are we outside of it? As I've always said, you get to a point where you just turn around and just go, "That's Brexit. Are you still sure you want to do this?" So ultimately, at the end of the day, this whole Trinity House Agreement is a really good step closer to seeing UK and EU security ties. But what our role in the future maybe is going to be does remain somewhat uncertain. But we will be involved in some way or shape or form. That is true. This German agreement shows how we can be part of it, how we can work together across those lines. And I think probably next year we do see this whole thing reopened again. Yeah, I do think we will see a lot of talks. I do think next year we're going to see a lot of talks around, around this. I really, really do. So we'll see what happens. But to say that within the first 100 days, Starmer has reset EU UK relations to a far better state than they have been, certainly since um, the Boris Johnson days. Um, Fundamentally, that has been an amazing progress. Um, People diminish it and say that it means nothing, but it really does in terms of international diplomacy. And when we've seen countries very, very willing to engage with the UK, far, far more than people have been uh, willing to admit. The UK Defence Agreement Pact, the Trinity House Agreement, is a fantastic step forward when it comes to sort of mutual defense, not only for us, but for the rest of Europe as well. Um, it just means now, what does this mean fundamentally for the rest of Europe? And I think when you look at it, the building of these new agreements, maybe, with Germany very openly saying we want to keep the UK aligned as close as possible with Europe, what does that really fundamentally mean when Germany says that, right? So, as always, let me know what you think down below. But I think this is a fantastic step forward. I think it was a fantastic achievement by Starmer. I think it's a fantastic achievement by this Labour government. So, we'll see where we go here. And remember, we are still very, very early days. We've got, what, 5 potentially more years of more stuff potentially like this? I cannot see how any of this is bad. I generally cannot see how any of this is bad from either point of view. But this is currently where we are, and Starmer has done, I think, a fantastic job on this. But as I said, there are still challenges. I think there may come a point where Labour just goes, well, why not? Why not just pursue alignment on this? Wouldn't surprise me if the alignment did happen at some point in the future. But still, very much trying to progress that Ming Vars strategy, and I think this is that test. Well, no one, even though they've done this and it's quite big, where's the media been on this? They haven't started shouting Brexit betrayal. So can we now be a bit more ambitious with other things? Maybe we can be. Ming Var strategy, careful steps. This seems to be it. This seems to be the direction that we're going in. So, hey, if it works, don't knock it. Am I right? So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, I'll see you all next time.